Hello and welcome to Stupid Ancient History with Midgley
and Taylor and our expert, non-expert and special guest James the Science Toolboy.
Hello.
As always, we're wearing our finest Sunday togas, and today we're going to look at the changing relationship between Darius and Greece. So previously on Stupid Ancient History we looked at the causes and events of the Ionian Revolt.
Which was never going to be a good idea to try and revolt against Darius, was it?
And how the self-serving actions of Aristagoras had caused the Ionian Greeks to rise against Darius between 499 and 493.
Which was really, really, really not a good idea.
No, it didn't go well.
It did not go well.
And then how the involvement of the Athenians in this enterprise, again seeking to expand their influence, led to Darius swearing to God that he would punish the Greeks.
Really, 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 really not a good idea.
So he's still set on vengeance because
He's got a slave reminding him 3 times every mealtime.
True.
It's not going away.
But them, swanning off. He didn't think, oh, they're nothing. I'm going to leave it.
Nope.
Right. Okay. Holds a grudge.
Pretty much.
So, the following year, in 492, Darius gathers another large army and puts them under the command of a young officer called Mardonius.
He's not short on armies, is he? He just keeps getting them all together.
Maybe it's like buy one get one free.
Well, he raised 3 to sort out the Ionians, didn't he? So just the one this time.
One thing the Persians are not short of, it's manpower.
Right. And sorry, who's in charge of him?
So it's Mardonius.
Mardonius.
Yeah,
okay.
very easy to say that name. So at this point, he is quite young. He is reported to be a skilled commander and someone that will come across regularly.
We should point out, he's also married to one of Darius's daughters.
Keeping it in the family.
Well, yeah.
We're not coming back to that.
No. So he's put in charge of this combined land and sea force, and he's sent off with the aim of punishing Athens and Eretria.
So, as Darius was told, remember the Athenians, Mr. Midgley.
How long is this after the Ionian Revolt? So
it's the year after.
The year after. So he's had a year of this bloke saying to him 3 times every meal, remember
the Athenians.
Okay.
And he has remembered.
If he worried if he forgot.
Yeah. So rather than risking a lengthy voyage across the Aegean with all his troops and ships, Mardonius opts to take a route in the north, crossing the Hellespont and into Thrace.
So I've just looked at the map, and he doesn't take the direct route, does he? He kind of goes a long way round.
Yeah.
He is taking the scenic route, although his kind of main aim is Athens and Eretria, and if he can conquer everything in its path, then that's going to make Darius really happy.
So he's not just on his way there; he's conquering.
Yeah, he's going to take things as he goes through, because why not?
So is this not going to anger Greece as a whole, or is it just...
Well, I mean, the way they're thinking of it, there's nothing between Persia and Athens apart from a few pesky Greeks.
Right, okay.
They don't really seem like that much of a threat to him at that time. So Mardonius sets off, gets all his guys together, they cross the Hellespont, relatively straightforward, but...
There's always a but.
There is a but. Quite quickly, his expedition is marred by a disaster. As his fleet is sailing round the Athos Peninsula, which is that's a sticky outy bit with a mountain on the end, his navy is struck by a storm, and Herodotus describes it like this.
So they were caught by a violent northerly gale, which proved too much for the ships to cope with. A great many of them were driven ashore and wrecked on Athos. Indeed, report says that something like 300 are lost, with over 20,000 men. That's quite a lot.
That is.
The sea in the neighbourhood of Athos is full of monsters. There you go. So that those of the ship's companies who were not dashed to pieces on the rocks were seized and devoured. Others, unable to swim, were drowned. Others again died of cold.
Sea monsters.
Yeah, is that... I know it's Herodotus, so we've got to remember that. Is that literal, or are they just calling the natives monsters, these beasts?
The sea monsters, it's likely to be things like sharks.
I was going to say, could it be sharks, squid?
Big angry fish.
Yeah, things like that. I mean, it's like, how would you rather die?
Yeah, you could what?
A few options.
Dashed against the rocks.
I don't think I'd like to be eaten.
Drowning's meant to not be awful.
Yeah, but it's dashed against the rocks.
True.
Either way, the safe
I think I'd rather just die of cold. That's what I'd go for.
To be fair, no one's winning, are they?
No.
And I don't think they really had the choice.
Well, no. But that's not all, James.
Why would it
It
be?
gets better. So, as his army pushes further inland, Mardonius comes under repeated attack.
Monsters.
No, not sea monsters. Just lots of angry northern tribes. So, in one of these attacks, Mardonius himself is wounded, and his army was forced to halt their advance.
Okay.
But Mardonius isn't going to go home until he's done what he's sent to do. I mean, he doesn't want to go back empty-handed to Darius. That's not a good idea. So he's wounded and lacking a full force. Mardonius still, though, manages to subdue most of Thrace and Macedonia, both of which now formally become absorbed into the Persian Empire.
So they were already allies, weren't they? Because that's where Darius fled to and was murdered, and so Thrace was already kind of part of it.
Yeah, Thrace and Macedonia, at the time, the southern Greeks pretty much regarded Macedonia and Thrace as kind of the wild northern lands, filled with basically angry gingers throwing spears at people.
Okay.
A bit like Scotland.
Well, not saying that about Scotland. That's on your head.
That's kind of the traditional version, though, isn't
Maybe
it?
to you. I'm not wanting to get banned from Scotland anytime soon, since that looks like that's the only place we'll be able to go on holiday. But yeah, so Thrace and Macedonia, they were not completely in the Persian Empire. Bits of Thrace were under Persian control, bits of it was still filled with angry people running around. But Mardonius basically brings them all back into Persian rule.
Okay.
So it's a success.
Did they speak Greek? Were they barbarians, the Greeks?
They were ethnically Greek.
Okay.
With some extras.
So that same year, the Persians also managed to force the wealthy island of Thasos, which is just off the coast of Thrace, to submit their empire. That sounds very kind of peaceful, doesn't it? And
that
nice.
Sounds quite, yeah.
It wouldn't have been peaceful and nice, I'm assuming.
To be fair, I mean, Darius basically told them to take down the walls, otherwise bad things would happen.
I was going to say that, you know, the submit thing sounds quite Cyrus-esque, but no, not if you just threaten them to...
No.
We know Darius likes a good threat.
Yeah. So Thasos was important because it had recently been using its ample wealth to amass a considerable navy. So this is going to be something really useful too, isn't it, in any forthcoming kind of fights.
Especially since I've just had a load of ships get dashed and the many
monstered.
by monsters.
Yeah, monstered, yeah.
So where's Mardonius at this point? Is he still injured and not on his way to Athens?
Doesn't even get close.
No.
Oh, really?
No, that's as far as he gets. But, like I said, he did manage to bring the entire northern coast of the Aegean under Persian control. And now that they fully hold both sides of the Hellespont, access to the Black Sea and so on, the world is shrinking around the Greeks.
Okay.
So they've got less places they can happily visit.
Okay. How did Darius react to the Athenians not being punished? He fired that arrow in the air for no reason.
Well, relatively well. I mean, Mardonius was relieved of his command. Not quite put on the naughty step, but you know, he is still wounded. But he's not impaled. So
it's good.
All things considering, he's got off quite well.
Yeah. Kind of knowing Darius quite a bit now, I'm guessing he just doesn't, let them off.
No, not even close. Even though he's gained some new land, which is nice, and his empire's expanding, he's not had his revenge. But he does take a slightly different track this time. And Herodotus tells us,
Darius now began to test the attitude of the Greeks and to find out whether they were likely to resist or surrender. He sent heralds to the various Greek states to demand earth and water for the king. Amongst the islanders, moreover, who gave the sign of submission were the Aeginetans. Is that
Aeginetans,
right?
yeah.
Aeginetans.
So yeah, earth and water.
Earth and water, so just mud.
Well, it doesn't literally just want some mud, no. I mean, it's symbolic. Earth and water are meant to be the two things a city-state will need to flourish. Earth to grow your crops in, and water to water the crops.
So does he basically want food? Is he asking him to send
He wants a symbol of
grain or something like that.
It's not something practical, it just wants this submission that our earth and our water is yours, our means of existence is yours to take away. So it's massively symbolic. But the shift here seems to be that Darius is now trying to turn the Greeks against each other, a bit like he did at the Battle of Lade when the Ionians turned on each other. So rather than just steamrolling across, he's actually trying something different. He's trying to play them off against themselves.
You said they don't really play well together, do they?
No, they don't.
So I suppose what he's thinking is, why bother fighting your way through all of Greece to get to Athens if, like with the Ionians at Lade, you can buy them off?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
It's a bit more sensible, isn't it? And he's not going to lose his army, so it makes more sense, I suppose. So they would be brought into the empire, and Darius would have been more people that he could kind of use to fight against Athens. Is that what he's thinking?
Yeah.
He can broaden his army, broaden his supplies, resources, all that kind of thing.
And also he's going to now have safe passage through Greek lands to get to Athens.
Right, okay.
So it's a bit of a mobster shakedown.
A little bit, yeah.
Nice town you've got there. It'd be a shame if someone was to impale you on it.
Yeah, a bit of, like a protection racket sort of thing.
Yeah, pretty much. John.
Did it work? Did he get his people?
Well, sort of. I mean, we're told that the first Greeks to respond to this demand for earth and water was an island called Aegina. This is a small little island state. It's just south of Athens.
Okay, so that's like strategically important to it.
Yeah.
But why were they the first to go like us?
Well, it's not that they were massive fans of the Persians per se. It's more that they were not massive fans of Athens.
Okay.
So this kind of attitude becomes more and more prominent across the Greek world at this point.
Like the enemy of my enemy sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. The idea is that some states, if not all, will join whoever if their views are temporarily aligned.
Okay.
So the fact that someone else hates Athens, the Aegeans give their earth and water and go, yeah, we hate Athens too.
What have the Athenians done to annoy the Aegeans?
They've accused them of being pirates.
Okay. Are they?
Sort of. Basically, Athens and Aegina share a narrow waterway as their main trade route. So there's lots of scrapping and crashing ships into each other. And Athens thinks they own the straits, the Aegeans think they own the straits. There's no one to come in and settle that score. So the Aegeans quite simply think, cool, if Persia want to burn Athens to the ground, fetch me the popcorn.
So it's this kind of classic, the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
For now.
Yeah, for now. That will probably change. So
do they not think that far ahead? Do they not think he may want to keep it once they've sorted Athens out?
Again, Aegina, they're probably, like a lot of the Greeks, they're probably thinking Darius will get bored, or it'll be a Cyrus deal again. We'll just carry on doing our Greek thing and maybe just pay him some taxes. And
right, okay.
Especially Aegina, they're thinking, we're such a small island. He's going to forget we exist.
So Herodotus kind of tells us that the majority of the other Greeks broadly agreed to Darius's demands, but in a somewhat kind of non-committal way. So it's a bit like, we might give you some water,
we're sending it now.
It's coming.
Yeah, I mean, again, a lot of them are probably just hoping he'll leave them alone, come and get Athens, and then move on.
Yeah, like you say, get bored.
Yeah, I mean, Herodotus is patchy at this point, but he says most of the Greeks agreed.
Okay. So is Darius pretty happy at this point? Because his kind of excursion in the north didn't work out, but he's kind of expanding west now, and they've not put up a lot of resistance. So he's doing that thing you say emperors do, which is expand their territory.
Yeah, it's sort of going well.
Okay.
But obviously the Athenians, knowing full well what Darius is up to, they're more than a little cross with this idea, and they don't take his demand for earth and water well.
Okay.
They throw the messenger into a pit that's reserved for criminals.
That's not very nice.
And also in Sparta, they threw the messenger down a well. Basically, you would not want to be the person going with this message, would you? Like, one's going in a pit, the other one's going in a well. It's not looking good.
I've been resisting making comparisons here, but is that where 300 get it from? Because they boot a bloke down.
Yeah, sort of. Although the Herodotus description is much better.
Oh, really?
Just booting him down. They chuck him down the well and tell him you'll find plenty of earth and water down there.
I like it. bit of a passive-aggressive kind of...
It's proper Sparta, snippy, get down there.
From what you've told me about Sparta, I never thought it was like,
Yeah, they are laconic. They're good with the one-liners.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so Sparta are not too keen at being asked to submit. Not because they have a real beef with the Persians, or they're not particularly friends with Athens. The thing you'll find with the Spartans is they are just stubborn.
Yeah.
I mean, anyone could have asked them for earth and water, and their response would be no.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
they don't do what other people ask. They like to think they call the shots, and if you ask them to do something they don't want to do, or if you tell them to give them
They'll
earth
do
and
the
water,
opposite.
get in. Well,
So as
Right,
someone
okay.
from Yorkshire, would you align yourself with Sparta then?
in some respects, yeah, they good old
See
classic.
the geographical similarities, bit stubborn.
I mean,
Don't say much.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you make a demand of Sparta, you straight away answer is going to be no.
Okay. So was this? Should he have known that? Was this a mistake?
I think he probably would have guessed, but again, it's Darius thinking, I've got this army of all the world, effectively.
Mm.
This is one tiny city-state. They're not going to put up a... What? He's down a well? No! So clearly now Sparta are sticking their heads out with Athens going, not happening.
Okay.
So with these kind of very different reactions to Darius's demands, it's important to point out that this brings a whole new worldview or policy kind of to the Greek world, and it's something that we refer to as this issue of Medizing.
What's that?
So those states who submitted to Darius became known as Medizers by those who had refused. So this is like a bit of a passive-aggressive taunt, isn't it?
It's not
To
even...
the
I
people
wouldn't
that are...
even say it's passive. I mean, it's an insulting term.
Yeah.
What, do we know what it means?
To Medize, to join the Medes, the
Okay.
Persians.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a pretty insulting term, suggesting that those who did Medize are weak and would just simply buckle under any pressure. The inference is that they're not real men because they'll just go, yeah, okay, I'm sorry.
Right. Okay.
So it's coming from, it's an act of defiance on the part of those who are saying no to make the others look weak and flimsy.
It's
and-
kind of saying they're a coward, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And it's important because this demand for earth and water polarizes the Greeks completely. We said they don't necessarily get on at the best of times. This really gives a clear division that you're either now a Medizer or you're standing in defiance to Darius. Whereas before, it's fair to say that the majority of states wouldn't have had a strong opinion.
Okay.
So for those who are standing against Darius, it builds this bond, this common link that they have in that they're not submitting to Darius.
Kind of
whereas-
galvanise them against
Absolutely, and it draws the line between those who are flimsy and succumbed to Darius's demand for mud and those who kicked people down all.
So what's kind of the split around Greece of the Medizers and the non?
Well, the non are few and
Okay.
far between.
Right. Okay.
Basically, you've got Athens and its small group of friends, and Sparta and their small group of friends.
Well, you said, I think, a while ago that Sparta was like the main power in Greece at this point. Did they
Yeah.
not hold enough sway to get like everyone to?
They have enough sway of the Peloponnesian League, which is a collection of states in the south of Greece. But again, it's very, very isolationist. So by doing this, Athens are almost geographically stuck out on their own in the north,
Right,
should
okay.
the Persians appear.
Is Greece at this point then a little bit like when we think of America? And although it's one place, they've all got their own little
Yeah,
kind
absolutely.
of interest that they're...
They've all
pushing
got
for.
they've all got their own laws, they've all got their own polis, the
Mm.
way they do things. They all hate each other and like each other equally. Even within city states, some people argue that they should Medize, others say they don't. So it just splits
Right. Okay.
the popular views of Greece at the time.
I know this is kind of going off piste, but how far away are we from like a united Greece?
Century at
Right.
least.
Okay.
Maybe more. It unites for a bit and then doesn't, and then basically for Greece historically it takes a foreign invasion to get them to work together.
Okay.
So in 491, Darius kind of once again amasses an army to go and sort out Athens.
Another one.
Another one! This is another one that he's had just there waiting in the sidelines. So he puts 2 Persian aristocrats, Datis and Artaphernes, but a different Artaphernes, not the same one as before, in charge of the expedition. And they also take along with them an Athenian exile who is called Hippias.
Who's that?
Hippias is one of the former tyrants of Athens. So he's a member of the Pisistratid family. They were the oligarchs who were sort of in charge of Athens before they had the democratic revolution and booted him out.
Okay.
And he's one of the reasons the Athenians aren't keen on Persia, because he legged it to Persia, he's been holding out there. So he's coming along as like an advisor, a guy with local knowledge. He also suggests that he's still got supporters in the region, so he can help overthrow Athens.
Right, and I'm assuming from his point of view, he would like to be in charge.
Yeah, he's putting himself up as the next satrap of Athens.
Yeah.
So yeah, so they come up. There's these 3 and this army, and they come up with quite a bold plan. So rather than going the long way around where Mardonius went, their plan now is simply to sail across the Aegean right up to Athens, and using these various little islands across the Aegean as kind of stepping stones.
Okay.
So it's all about boats for them.
So in 490 they set off. The first stop on their kind of Greek odyssey is the island of Naxos, which is the one that Aristogoras had failed to take. So the Persian force easily takes the island and burn the city to the ground.
So this isn't like a friendly little excursion.
Not really.
Not
No.
hopping along these islands.
No.
So these islands were not in support of the Persians, I'm guessing.
No, well, Naxos was the one that Aristogoras tried.
But they didn't then kind of capitulate.
No, they thought they'd be left alone.
Right, okay.
Foolish.
Have they not been paying
Error.
attention?
No. So then next, once they've burnt Naxos to the ground, the next stop is a holy island called Delos, right in the middle, and this is meant to be the birthplace of Apollo.
I'm guessing they burned that as well.
No.
Oh,
No,
good.
they left it in keeping with this kind of Persian approach to foreign religions, bit Cyrusy. The commanders actually make offerings to Apollo and conduct religious rites there.
But all the people ran off anyway, because they clearly thought that it was
They'd
going
been
to
paying
be burned,
attention.
yeah,
Oh, right, okay.
burned to the ground.
So they saw what happened next door and just went, no.
Yeah,
It's like, I'm not sticking around and getting toasty. I'm doing one.
they legged it, and the Persians just did a bit of praying, which was nice.
Yeah.
And the last stop en route to Athens is the city-state of Eretria.
I remember them. They gave ships, the Ionians.
Correct.
Oh,
Well done,
I
you.
do pay attention.
Yeah, so they're the ones who loaned 5 ships to the Athenians to go and help the Ionians. And the Persian forces land, and they start laying siege to the city-state, and this lasts for 6 days. Now, you'd think that a well-protected city-state such as Eretria would be easily able to hold off what is effectively an isolated invading force. I mean, these Persians have no real hope of resupplying or getting reinforcements because they're
Burned everything behind
burned
them.
everything behind them. But they're also so far away from any kind of resupply. But unfortunately for Eretria, they suffer an age-old problem that the Greeks have.
Which is?
Well, 2 Eretrians decided that the Persians would not harm the town, so open the gates for them.
What made them think that was a good idea?
Yeah, they've clearly not learned, have they?
They really, really haven't.
Not been paying attention.
But in all seriousness, why did they think that was a good idea?
Don't know.
It's just it's literally 2 guys.
Yeah.
Just
Who-
not too, like, you know, of the aristocrats.
They must
or,
have been like the Chuckle Brothers, wasn't they?
Well-
I know!
Herodotus says they're 2 well-known Eretrians.
Right, okay.
And he names them. So they're obviously quite influential.
Please tell me he calls them like Pinky and Perky or something.
No,
like
he
that.
gives them their actual names. But they're obviously thinking if they open the gates, they'll do quite well out of this deal by going, look, Persians, me and him, we let you in. It doesn't work well.
No.
What do you think happens, James?
I think they're going to get impaled.
Well.
Impaled, singed, you know. So basically the town is burnt, along with the temples. And Herodotus states that this was an act of revenge for the burning of Sardis. So
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Well, Darius hadn't.
No, no.
obviously
Maybe
not.
we need to remind you 3 times every mealtime.
Maybe.
Remember the temple.
I've already eaten today.
Remember the temples.
So it's like, right, job done. So the Persian fleet pack up and they head to Athens. So they're feeling quite happy.
Everything behind them's on fire.
Apart from Delos
Yes.
and
apart
the
from-
sea.
Yeah. But that's full of monsters, so you don't want
Yeah,
anything
no.
to do with that.
So obviously one of the big issues we do need to look at is this idea of causation. What brings Darius to bear the full weight of numerous armies against the Greeks? The straightforward response is it's an act of revenge.
Yeah.
You know, remember the Athenians, the burning of the temples. It's a straightforward suggestion that Darius turns his attention to Greece because of revenge.
But ultimately, that's fine if he'd just gone and done that. But the fact that he also takes all these other little bits along the way also suggests whether he sat down and planned it as, I'm going to take all of these areas and this is going to be something that he used for expansion, or whether he just thought, actually, whilst I'm going there anyway and I need to stop off and I need to refuel and get
Since
supplies
we're
or
there,
whatever,
Yeah.
then I might as well do that as well. But ultimately, it is also about imperial expansion, isn't
Yeah.
it? It's about increasing the size of his empire.
I was
And
just
the
about,
revenge may have just sped up his timetable a bit. 'Cause don't forget,
Yeah.
Atossa wants him to invade Greece.
I was going to say, like, was this kind of inevitable? Because he tried to go north, that didn't work.
Yeah,
Has he only really got west to go to Greece?
pretty much. Because again, like we said before, when we looked at ideas of expansion, if he goes south, it's a desert, and that didn't work out too well. If he goes east, it's the Himalayas, it's India, it's very difficult. So west is effectively the only
So
place.
he tried north, didn't work.
And he's now got an excuse to go west,
Yeah.
take over Greece, and
Just makes me think of the Pet Shop Boys. Go west. Don't want to sing. I won't.
you
Don't
do
worry.
realise how few people listening to this will know what the Pet Shop
I know.
Boys
I
are.
know.
So yeah, it's an opportunity that presents itself, and
He takes it.
he takes it absolutely. We should also think again about this idea of earth and water and the Greek reaction. Clearly, Darius, from his dealing with the Ionians, thinks the Greeks aren't going to put up much of a scrap. They seem a lot less unified than the Scythians, and they have places he can burn to the ground, which he's quite
It's
good
quite
at. They don't run off
interesting.
as much.
It's quite interesting though, isn't it? Because we think of Darius as this really kind of frightening, brutal, kind of vengeful
character.
ruler, and yet it shows that for some of the Greek places, they are either not frightened of him or they're quite happy to kind of come up with some kind of compromise.
Yeah, he's pragmatic. In some instances, yeah, you think of Darius as this kind of evil, vengeful king, especially given that it's Greeks writing about the man who invaded them.
Yeah.
But when you look, even Herodotus actually points out, he's quite pragmatic. The first thing he did was, well, once he dealt with the 9 kings and the guy turned into a chair, the first thing he does when becoming king of Persia is he reorganises. He organises things. He builds things like the Nile Canal, the irrigation. So he's pragmatic, and he's clearly thinking, if I can acquire this land through non-violent means, happy days. It's almost like the suggestion is that you could see why some Greeks would see the benefit of being part of this wider Persian network. They'd obviously been trading with the Persians well before this. The Ionian states had grown quite wealthy because of this trade, so it would make sense to some Greeks to join the Persians.
And also, if there's so much kind of infighting and division within Greece itself, and that's not unified, then for some, especially maybe the smaller states,
Absolutely.
they might think it's a positive to actually align themselves with a bigger empire, because ultimately they don't know what the surrounding states are going to do, and they're on their doorstep.
They've got a pretty good idea
Well,
what
yeah,
they're going to do. They know
they've
at some point they're going to come into conflict with each other.
But
and
they've
that's
not
what they
got the
do.
resources, have they? So
No.
if they can rely on someone like Persia, who've
Yeah.
got ample, as we've already kind of laughed at the fact they can just keep getting
He
his
just throws armies at everywhere.
anywhere. Then obviously you can use them, can't you, to kind of protect your little
you've
city-state
got a
from
big scary
everybody
bit
else.
looking after you against someone who's trying to take your farmland. And again, this issue with Greek unity probably presents itself as a golden opportunity to Darius, that he knows not everyone's going to agree, but he's hoping the majority will, and then it'll just make it easier for him to conquer. So he's dividing them, ready to absorb them.
Divide and rule, isn't it?
Absolutely. But yeah, so in terms of why the Persians and Greeks come into conflict, yeah, realistically it's that failed expedition to help the Ionian states, burning the temple. This is the catalyst, this is what triggers it all off.
Being reminded every meal.
That will also have a bit of a role in it. So there you have it, a quick look at Darius's changing relations with Greece. Thank you for listening, we hope this has been helpful. As always, leave us a comment below, and until next time, goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
And remember the Athenians.